right, we're live. Welcome to another episode of The Critical Social Worker, a revolutionary storytelling podcast. I think this is episode 71, so we're moving right along. And I'm very happy to be joined by Gary Taylor, aka Trey, this afternoon for you. How you doing?
I'm all right, man. Little tired, but I'm making it, pushing it through. How about yourself?
Yeah, good, tired too. We both got good reasons to be tired, so we'll talk about that
Yeah.
moving forward. Uh, but just a little bit about Trey. He's a licensed clinical social worker, LCSW, author, creator, professor, doctoral student, deacon. Basically, you're a man who wears many, many hats. So
Mhm.
much respect to you for all you got going on, because you're not just busy, but you're doing good work. So I just want to say I appreciate you and the man that you are and the good work that you're putting out here into the world.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. It's good to be seen and good to be heard.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, you're in Virginia. Yeah. Did you grow up in Virginia? Is that where you're from?
Yeah, man. Born, raised in Virginia, still reside in Virginia. I'm from Caroline County, Virginia. If anybody knows where Virginia's at, like Kings Dominion, the theme park, I'm like 10 minutes away from that. I've never left. I never moved out. I moved out the area a couple times, like
Mhm.
30 minutes north, 30 minutes south, things like that. But I'm a good old country boy, rural aspect. I love my rural environment. I just actually when the process of selling our house that is in a subdivision and actually moved back more into more of a rural area in Caroline. So get some of that rural feeling again. I just enjoy the openness and the woods and having that access to be kind of limited to everybody. But when I'm ready to go, I'll be out in the mix and man moving around, stuff like that. When I go home, I want to be removed from everything.
Mhm. Yeah, I hear you. How far are you away from Richmond?
Richmond, I'm like a 35-minute drive.
Okay. So
Hmm.
my only experience with Virginia, I have some comrades and some friends in Virginia, but I used to work with a political prisoner, Uhuru, and
Hmm.
uh, we used to correspond via letters and stuff. And we went and visited him in
Okay.
prison over there. And I
Hmm.
remember we flew into Richmond, and I think like that, like about 45 minutes away, I think, or something like that. Maybe it was an
Yeah.
hour drive, but it surprised me because um, I didn't visualize Virginia or like the East Coast that way at all, because it was like,
Hmm.
white houses with fences and like rural kind of
Yeah.
areas, just like kind of like a step back in time, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Virginia, I tell folks a lot of time, Virginia, man, is like almost like three different parts, well, three or four different parts, right? You got, Northern Virginia, then you got, which is more like closer to, really big houses, like high income, things like that. Central Virginia, which kind of encompasses a little bit of Richmond and my area, and that goes up and down between a rural urban town ish, and then you got the 757 area, that's its own little entity, and then you got Southwestern Virginia, and it's like depending on where you end up at, like Virginia is beautiful, like it has beautiful scenery, rural aspects, urban aspects, you name it, but it has a deep history too, as well, home of the Confederacy in Richmond, and a lot of different things that come up through Richmond. I mean, Virginia as well. We had the Loving versus Virginia case, interracial couple that came from actually in Caroline. And so stuff like that. Virginia has its deep dark secrets, but it's a beautiful, beautiful state. But it's chopped up into different versions depending on where you're at. So it's I could see somebody that's not from here coming here, getting off at the airport, and be like, wait a minute, what's going on? You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
it makes sense for sure.
Yeah, and it does have. I'm a little bit familiar with some of the dark history, and my friend Hockey, he lives in Richmond, and he goes around and documents where slave revolts happened, and slaves were buried, and all kinds of things like that. And so
Yep.
some of that stuff is just buried from us here. I mean, many of us know somewhat of the history, but a lot of the details of it have been buried. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean buried for good reason, right? Because if we actually have been exposed to that, then what does that matter? I remember um even just not really knowing the history of the area, at least in my area, until I got to college, and why that wasn't taught, why we was in K through 12, and even downtown Fredericksburg at one point, which is north of me, 20 minutes north. at least until like the 2000s, right? They still had a picture, not a picture, but the actual slave block in the downtown area where they had to vote to figure out where they wanted to put it at, and it was right by all the shops and all the bars and stuff like that as a memento almost. And it was like, but this is slavery from, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, Virginia is unique. I would say that.
Yeah. Do you get it? Let me ask you this: you get a lot of like, are there? Is it how segregated is it? And do you have like, people floating around the Confederate flag and things like that? What's the atmosphere like?
Yes. Um, I grew up with the Confederate flag. As far as you know, the guys I went to school with, they wore it, they wore hats, they wore the shirts, they wore the apparel. They had the lifted trucks with the Confederate flag on the
Mhm.
back of it. And at the time when I was going to school, I didn't really I knew what it stood for and the intent, but I didn't know the deep rooted history behind it and why it shouldn't be appropriate to be in our area at this current moment. And so, but I had friends that was, wore Confederate flags and had it and, was all around it. And at one point, if you go up 95 far enough, going past Stafford, Virginia, there used to be a big Confederate flag that you was flying above the tree line that you could see off 95, the highway. And so, I mean, yeah, so it's here. It's here. It's still here. I was part of a group years ago during the George Floyd time where we was petitioning to get a Confederate monument removed from our courthouse lawn, our older courthouse lawn, because it didn't have no name to it. It was a Confederate soldier, and it was memorializing that person. I was like, this is not appropriate to be in our county if we want to, you know, be inclusive to everybody. And so we got it removed. We went to a Confederate cemetery, but that was one of the things. And so I wouldn't say we're segregated, but there's still pockets of the black community in different areas, pockets of the white community, then intermixing between different areas. And of course, we have that Love and West Virginia history. So like the
Yeah.
interracial couple history, that landmark case, and you have those individuals that are in part of that family as well. Um, so yeah, it's not it's not as segregated as it used to be, but it's still undertones, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I was going to ask you this a little bit later, but it's coming to my mind right now. When I mentioned my friend Hockey's in Richmond, and we talked. It was a conversation we had a couple years ago. But I asked him how Black folks in Virginia perceive social workers, and he was
Mhm.
really negative. I should say down about it, saying that
Yeah.
here most Black folks are going to look at social workers in a negative light as disruptors or as somebody that's coming for the children. And I can't remember exactly what he said, but he was really down about it. Do you get that kind of sentiment?
Um, I think that stigma's still around, but it's slowly, dissipating. Especially
Mhm.
with a lot of us who are, black social workers who are moving the needle around that, and we're doing a lot of non-traditional social work roles. And so, but me coming up, as a mental health guy, there was a stigma around mental health and black mental health. So then educating the community around that, and then going into social work and then educating them around social work, right? Like this is what a social worker looks like, this is what he does. This is how I show up sometimes to supervision and class and stuff like that, So I think that, and for me, I mean, it just, because I'm in a rural environment, like it was gonna be education more so than anything else in the first place because
Mhm.
of my environment. But it just depends on which area that you might be in, what I'm saying, as far as, if they understand what social workers do, what their experiences have been. A lot of folks' experience with social workers have been negative, absolutely. And so trying to show folks a different side of what social workers look like, what we can do, how we show up. I think that's been changing over the last few years, especially since COVID and some of the social justice things that's been happening.
Yeah, and social work's done a pretty good job at diversifying itself. You know what I mean? The leadership
Hmm.
has diversity in it. There's I know a lot of social workers that are just doing excellent things, whether that's their job or whether it's podcasting or media stuff that fit over the spectrum. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I, I think social work is doing a pretty good job in that regard.
Yeah, that's what I set out to do when I first became one. My goal was like, okay, how do I get more black and brown folks into the social work profession? How do I make it marketable, right? Make it cool,
Yeah.
make it look like something that you can do. Because a lot of folks was doing the work, but they wasn't called social workers, right?
Mhm.
And so like impacting those folks, say go back to school, you get your social work degree, and then you can either start your practice or continue to do the work that you're doing. Um, so I when I first graduated, like I said, I set out to do just that. And I think right now, as I take a pause for a moment and see where I'm at leadership wise in social work, and see the students and supervisees that I'm supervising and working with, I'm like, oh, I've accomplished that goal now, to see that. Because I remember it wasn't a lot of us, man. I didn't know. I mean, even when I got into social work, I didn't know what we do. I had an idea, but I didn't know the routes we could go and what could happen. I was just interested in the field, in the profession, and didn't know didn't know where it would take me. But no, I wanted to advocate and talk about mental health advocacy and do policy based work, and it's just taking me on a journey. And that journey has also inspired and motivated other social workers too. So I've been thankful and blessed for that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you mentioned that one of your goals or your mission was to get more black and brown folks into social work. Why do you think that's so important?
I think it's important because it's important to see yourself in different professions, to be able to relate, but also to have some of that. I get it, right? I can, and also have some of our lived experiences, some of our understanding of our culture be infused into social work practice. A lot of our historians, people who did the work beforehand, could be considered social workers, but they weren't, right? And then there's still black social workers and pioneers that did a lot of things too as well. But I always think about like, with like Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and then like the Black Panther Party, like those are social work related items that folks are being, doing, but maybe not can categorize as social workers in of a sense, philosophers and things of that thing. And so um I take it personally to be able to make sure that there's a wide, diverse population of social work uh, practitioners, whether that's micro, macro, or in between with meso. But if we're going to be a diverse population that addresses marginalization and oppression, and well, making sure that we look like our community, that we need to be also represented in that way as well. And for a long time, I mean, us as the black community or the black social workers, we wasn't. I mean, it's growing now. It's actually grown a lot since I've even graduated. When I first seen it, right? I forgot the numbers, but it's increased in numbers, and I'm happy to see that. But we're needed. We're needed so badly, and it goes beyond just traditional social work roles and interventions. We can apply that cultural background and experience to help folks.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I see, brother. I think that's brother KD in the chat. I just want to say warm revolutionary greetings to you, brother KD. And if you want to hop in and call in or anything or chime in, then feel free because it reminds what you were just saying reminds me of a conversation I had with brother KD recently where um, I think you were both in alignment with some of my goals as far as it really bothers me when we teach the history of social work and it starts with Jane Addams and
Yeah.
so and so and so and so and just like you said. So you're saying that all these other folks weren't doing social work, you know what I mean? And even like if you took the Black Panther Party and free breakfast programs or a
Yep.
multitude of other things, are you saying that that's not social work? Because that is social work, you know
Right.
what I'm saying? And
Right.
and we make an error by teaching social work in such a way, you know what I mean? Like it starts there.
Right,
It doesn't make
exactly.
sense.
Exactly. And that's what I try to shift as much as I can. I'm not just saying I'm the almighty expert in it, but what I'm saying, like it's just like think about this, let's reframe these things. And shout out to brother Kyle, man. That's my guy, man. He is definitely an amazing social worker and doing amazing work in the liberation social work space for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Big shout out to brother KD. And he said image and representation influence perception. And that's right. If we teach it in such a way, it's going to influence the way that
Hmm.
folks perceive the field of social work, you know what I mean? And who
Yeah,
they are even.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, earlier we mentioned that you're a man of many hats. You got a lot of responsibilities, a lot of different projects, and a lot of different things that you're doing. And I feel the exact same way. We're both. in the hopefully in the final year of our doctoral programs. We are
Bless.
both professors in a unique way before we finished our doctoral programs. We both are involved in media things. We both got families,
Mhm.
so there's just a lot of things going on. And you said you get this question a lot, and it's hard to answer. But how do you balance so many things? How do you stop yourself from going crazy and still being able to devote time for your family and to yourself, and keeping your head above water and taking care of everything?
Yeah, man. My students been asking me this question all semester. It's it was funny because brother Kyle, man, he invited me to come speak in his class, I think last year sometime, and wanted me to discuss my social work journey, right? And I paused for a minute and I was like, I haven't, I've been running, racing, got in the DSW, start teaching, doing my thing, and I never took the time to really map out the whole journey. And it was a very important reflective activity for me. Um, so much so to see where I've come from and see where I've, ended up at. And also I encourage my professors to do the same thing, right? Like share your journey with your students so they know the process. A lot of times these students are coming in, yeah, they want to learn about social work and they want to understand the process, but they also want to know how'd you get here, right? And so I said, so I share that now, in the first class to show them, hey, this is your professor, this is what they went through and how we got there. Now, how I balance it all, a lot of prayer, a lot of prayer, my faith, my family, my friends, my support systems. And I also understand that I am very privileged to have and blessed to have the friends and family that I do who are very supportive of my endeavors and have always been for the last, couple years in this journey in space. So they keep me grounded. There's a couple of folks that can pull my coattails. My wife, of course, being the first one. Like, if I'm doing too much or I'm talking too much social work or engaged too much, she'll shut it all down. Like all this will stop in a in a heartbeat. Um, and then my kids, of course. And then I have like I tell folks, man, I don't have all my friends aren't social workers either. Like I have friends who are not social workers, never been social workers. They know I do social work and mental health, but they gonna keep me regular as far as Trey. Trey, the person that they grew up with, or that was the person they hooped with, sneakerhead with, cars with, went to high school with, you name it. I got that set of group of people as well. And so I think that it gives me opportunity to go in and out, right? Like of my different roles and hats, even in church, right? Like, I have my church group, my men's group, and things like that that ground me in faith and keep me up to date and keep me on track, making sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. So I feel like at this point in time, and I may have cultivated this, over the last few years, is for every aspect of my life, right? I have a support system for each hat, you know, that pours into me, that makes sure I'm good, make sure I'm taking care of myself, and that also support my endeavors. And there are a few that will be able to shut me down. I remember when I was in private practice, I had my cousin and one of my homeboys, and they would just explicitly just be, if I was too overwhelmed or tired with all sessions, they would just like, yo, come through. We're gonna just chill, watch the game, chop it up, and be done. Right. And so they understood that. Um, so I my that those three things, my faith, my family, what I'm saying, my friends and support systems in the different areas is how I think I balance my work life. And I also have create boundaries for myself, not just for everybody else, but I create boundaries to step away, to take a break. I'm a workaholic. I know how to work on E. I do know how to do that. But I so in order to stop myself, I will create time slots where I'm working and create time slots where I'm not working. Create time slots where I'm going to answer the phone, be engaging on everything. Times I'm not going to answer the phone. Or if we, sports, I love sports. That's my time to decompress and get out of the world of social work. And, so I say all that to say, like, my 7-day schedule is built around when I wake up, how I feel, what's going on, what we need to do. get it done. If I can't get it done, it has to wait. What else can I get done? If not, or if it's a day where I just have to say, yo, shut it down. Like I had last week. I just had to shut it down. Like we're not doing nothing but sitting on the couch and watching TV to recuperate. And it's a process, a complex process, I think, that has been cultivated over the last 10 to 15 years via those three things I told you, those three support systems. And then also going to therapy, making sure my health is together and straight. And just really, really learning about myself, because I tell students this: if you don't know your triggers, you don't know things that make you happy, things that make you sad, things that make you tick. If you don't listen to what your body is telling you, then your body will shut you down. I don't care where you're at in the process of what paper you need to do, who you need to show up for. Kids need something. If you don't do it, your body would do it for you. And I've experienced that before, and I don't want to go back to that. So, yeah,
Yeah, I really appreciate what you said about taking care of yourself and getting to know yourself, your body, your what makes you happy, what makes you sad, what's going to make you angry. That's what I try to hammer home to the students that I work with is the best. I think, and from my perspective, the very best thing you can do to prepare yourself to be a good social worker or even a good human being for that matter is to get to know yourself and take care of yourself because you can't take care of nobody else if
yeah,
you're not taking care of yourself.
yeah, absolutely.
What about you ever have times that you are like, "Why am I doing all this?" And should I just, what the heck am I doing? And you have to push yourself through and talk yourself through it. You ever have those moments?
Absolutely. I probably had it earlier today. Probably. um, yeah, man. I have those moments, man. I just like, why am I here? Like, or why am I in this DSW program? I don't need to be in this program. You know what I'm saying? Or why am I doing this? And you know, folks, if you got those folks in your corner, sometimes they'll text you back and was like, because you wanted to da 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 da. Or some folks might say, well, just cut it, shut it down for a little bit. So
Mhm.
I do have those moments, and those moments when they happen, I take a time to accept them, give space to them. Why do I feel this way? What's going on right now that's challenging? And why am I feeling this way? And then we decide, are we going to continue, or if we just can. I've developed this habit, probably not in the last few years, where if I know this thing has an endpoint, right, I might push myself just a little bit over to just knock it out because I know it has an endpoint, right?
Mhm.
And because if that's the endpoint, it stops and that's over with. I can move on. So if that's the top priority, let's go ahead and knock it out. Yeah, boohoo, figure it out, blow some steam off, throw some, do deep breathe, get yourself together, and then attack it, and then it's done. You know, and so that's how I've kind of carried those situations.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Charlie in the chat says, "Thank you for sharing about your support systems and how they come through for you when you see you need it. That's just as important as having and maintaining individual boundaries in the professional space and beyond."
Yep.
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely, Charlie.
Yeah.
Anybody out there that's here tuning in, feel free to chime in a question or request a call in if you got something to say. Especially students that, if any of you have any of these dreams or aspirations that you might want to enter into a doctoral program somewhere down the road,
Yeah.
I think this will be helpful for you. So I would have never known this until recently, but there's different ways that you can go through a doctoral program, and specifically in social work, you could go through and do the more traditional side of it and, write a dissertation. But there's also another route, which is a DSW, which is what you're going through. You mind talking about what that is and why you chose to go that route?
Yeah, so the doctorate of social work is more of a practicing doctoral degree. Um, just kind of shaping all of your experiences and to preparing you to practice at the practicing level, whether that's running agencies, what I'm saying, organizations. It does prepare you to teach as well, but it also prepares you for leadership in the social work space. Versus PhD in social work might look like, compiling research and also preparing you to teach as well. So that's more, PhD is more research heavy. We do research too, but like PhD is research heavy, like what I'm saying. So, um, and we do a capstone project, which incorporates systematic literature review, conceptual paper, and an application paper. Concept paper, systematic literature review just looks at a topic and figure out what you want to research. Does a long discussion about that, literature review around that, and then we go into the concept paper, which is preparing you to figure out, okay, what's been done, has it been helpful, is it applicable to what you're trying to research, and then the application paper is taking that literature review, that concept paper, and seeing if you can provide something new or build upon something else and presenting it. And at the end, you take that whole capstone project, excuse me, and do a showcase at least for University of Kentucky and present it, to your colleagues and your administration and staff. So yeah, that's kind of the difference. And I chose DSW. I Going through this DSW process made me realize that I probably could have done a PhD program because I do have some things that I'm deeply interested in. Um, but I ain't got enough time. I don't have enough time. And I don't have enough patience to give up 4 years. I was willing to give up two, right? And DSW has like, full time, it's all online, full time, part time, 3 year, you name it. And I was like, I can give up two. I got two. I got two in me. That's all I got, yo. I ain't got nothing else. Like I'm gonna knock it out and do. That's all I can do. Coming up on 40, I'll be 37 next month, and I was like, if I can get this thing knocked out before 40, I'll be all right. I ain't going back to school no more. And I was also trying to time it with my son because my son turned 3 this year, and I was like, I wanted to knock it out before he gets into K through 12 school. Because my daughter, she's in K through 12, she's doing basketball, she's doing Girl Scouts, she's singing on the choir. I was like, if it shows up anything like her, I'm not gonna be available. Like, you know what I'm saying? So so I just, me personally, I just didn't have 4 years to give. Um all I could do was two. And that was the best way possible for me. So that's why I chose DSW.
Yeah, and as far as doctoral program in social work, it sounds like the DSW is more in alignment with social work being a practice-oriented profession. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So I can see pros and cons to both of them. You know, when I was your age, I told myself the same thing. I was like, I'm gonna get this done before 40. And I probably could have done it, but I just ran into like some hiccups. I had my advisor retired early because he got
Hmm.
sick, and so I transferred programs and things like that. But here I am hoping I finish at 43. So I'm a
Oh
few
yeah,
years ahead of you.
you still good. You still good. Yeah, still good. Yeah. Yeah, so that was the timing, man. And then I just was like, I felt like the DSW closely aligned, like you said, with the practice research that I was doing in social work, and it would just enhance. I tell people, like, it's not the icing on the cake, it's more so like the candle put on the cake, and to capstone everything that I've been doing and continue to do. And so hopefully prepare me, if I stay in academia, continue to prepare me for leadership um, in academia, or state and federal policy around mental health access. That's my three things I'm looking at.
Yeah. And we'll circle back to that in just a second. Kara wanted to know if you wouldn't mind repeating the last step of your papers. I'm not sure
Oh
what she means, but I think you went through the gauntlet of what you got to do.
yeah, so for us in our DSW program at University of Kentucky, um, we do a systematic literature review. That's the first component of the capstone project, and then we do the concept paper, and then we do the application paper, and then after we do all of those papers, we put it into a nice presentation and we present it to our peers and administration at the end of the spring semester, which hopefully will be next year, presenting our information to be doctoral students.
Yeah. And then Brother Kyle asks, what informed your decision to undergo the DSW program and prioritize rural mental health?
Good question. Um, so I really just landed on rural mental health. I'm gonna be honest with you. And it was, I don't know why I didn't start with it because I've been doing it for years. Um, I initially went in there to do what else? I was thinking about going with AI and black men and trying to figure out how we can utilize AI. And then I shifted to like barbershop talks where like how we can utilize the barbershop to help black men with their mental health and physical health. But then after a conversation with a PhD student, my guy, Dr. Richardson out in Alabama, he was talking to me. He was like, "Man, did you think about working in, think about researching rural mental health?" I said, yeah, but I ain't really, go into depth about it. I was just, I was thinking about black men as a whole. But for me, I was like, oh, well, that might be perfect as I think about suicide prevention. I don't see a lot of research around suicide prevention for black men in rural areas. Rural areas are so unique because we don't have the same barriers as those in urban areas. And I've been doing it. I've created a model in a rural environment that can be replicated. So why not research it, continue that research on, and move forward with that? And so that's where I landed at. I just realized just now after doing my systematic literature review that I might need to make the rural more like rural South versus rural as a whole because I didn't think about the difference in rural environments such as like the Midwest or rural South. And I was like, or things like that. And I was like, oh, there's a difference there. So that's how I landed there. Just kind of want to be more specific and then kind of focus in on stuff that I was already doing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting even to compare that or juxtaposition it with Alaska,
Mhm.
because Alaska, a lot of it is rural and separated by, hundreds, even thousands of miles sometimes, no road systems and,
Right.
mostly gonna be Alaska Native communities for the most part,
Right.
if you know what I mean, and so I actually went through, how it got me involved in the talking circles. I went through a rural human services program, which was like a certificate, pushing you on your way toward the social work degree. But it
Hmm.
was cool because, everything we did, well, most of the things that we did, the method of instruction was via talking circles with indigenous elders. So it was just a much more like relational and, connecting atmosphere that really taught me a lot about myself and my place in the world and things like that. To be honest, I hated him at first. I was like, I got places to be, I got things to do, I got
Yeah.
homework and
Yeah.
but once I was able to slow down and listen, you know what I mean? It really was transformative for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Rural environment, man. I love it. Like people always ask, like, you never will move or you won't, you like that sparseness and, open fields, cornfield. I said, man, I love that, man. Like it's so peaceful out here. And I just like the concept of I love where I grew up. You know what I'm saying? I've traveled many places, but to be in that rural space and then to learn from different folks and then how we grew up with, man, I wouldn't trade it for nothing. It's been super. It's made me who I am as a person for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I grew up a little bit in the country and then spent a lot of time in the cities and then ended up in the lab. I've lived all over the place, but
Yeah.
in Honolulu, Hawaii, I've lived in Las Vegas. Um, and when I met you in person was in Chicago, right? The exact
Right.
opposite.
Yeah.
And it was cool for me to go to Chicago, but
uh
I was a bit overwhelmed by the end of it and I really wanted to get home to the
Really.
country and see my family. It
Yeah.
was a little bit too much because I've been away for so long, if you know what I mean.
That makes sense. That I mean, it actually came at a perfect time for me because was tired and I needed a break. And met up with my guys, Dr. James Bell and Christopher Scott. We did a panel and had a good time, for that brief time, away for a little bit and got back to family. So I love Chicago. Chicago's nice. So I see I'll travel and I'll go to places for a few days. That's all I need. Then get me back to the country. Get me back to the woods. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. Well, I think another area that we have in common is that we're both professors before we finish our doctoral program, which is unique. And
Yeah.
sometimes for me, it's brought in a little bit of inferiority complex. You're in there with all the, you know, people with the letters by their names already and
Right.
things like that. And honestly, they probably aren't looking down on me. That's just my,
Yes, sir.
my own insecurities and things like that. But I've seemed to get over it. But how did that come about? How did you end up? Because it's not very often that you have some but people like us that enter into the academy before
Yeah.
finishing up our education.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, man, I I was looking to teach and do some adjunct work, but I think like I was gonna try to do like be a TA because one of the universities down here was like, you need to be a TA first. You didn't have teaching experience. Then they took the TA program away. So I was like, okay, maybe I'm not gonna be able to teach. So then come to find out, down in Virginia State, I could teach with the MSW and I had the LCSW. So they was like that actually qualifies you to, be able to teach adjunct or, teach full time. And then we have enough, PhDs, DSWs here to kind of balance out the program because we had enough here on the program. So I didn't know that. I just thought that because I didn't have a PhD or DSW, I couldn't teach. And so my director, who I've known for quite some time, she's probably one of the first social workers that I've ever knew and was going for social work, Dr. Younger. Um, she called me one day and I was doing speaking engagements around the area and stuff like that. She saw my flyer and she was like, she was going to ask me to either come do a guest lecture or see what's going on in that space. And I was like, and then she was like, yo, did you ever think about teaching? I was like, I did, but they told me I couldn't because I ain't had a PhD, a doctorate. So I'll just, swipe it off and just do something else. You know what I'm saying? And she was like, nah, we got something for you. You want to do adjunct or full time? And I wasn't looking for it. So I tell people all the time, man, like my social work journey, yo, like I did not want to be a licensed clinical social worker. I did not want to be in private practice. I swore off teaching because I didn't think I could teach without the actual doctoral degree. I didn't want to supervise supervisees. I didn't want to do any of these things that I've been doing in social work. I used to hate public speaking. Like, you know what I'm saying? So everything that y'all see now as this product, right, were things that I tried to steer away from or did not want to do for myself. And so obviously it's like she asked me, and I was like, man, I had this shift because I was in private practice and my son was just born and I needed to pivot because two kids, family four now, taking care of the household, and private practice has slowed up because I had my son and I couldn't increase like I wanted to my clients. So and I was tired, I was burnt out, I was sleep deprived, and so I needed some stability. And so I said, well, yeah, I'll do full time, and did full time, learned it on the fly. They threw me in on a Saturday class, and then and for a Saturday class from 9 to 12, and then 12 to 1. I mean 1 to 4. And shoot, I'm now the MSW online program coordinator, and we're coming up on 3 years in January from teaching. So yeah,
Yeah, right on. Congratulations, and I'm guessing that your students are very fortunate to have you. Um,
yeah.
what kind
Hope
of
so.
teaching methods do you do? What kind of so you're online completely?
I manage online, but I do hybrid online and then also in person. So program coordinator, I'm managing the whole online program, and then I teach two classes in person. So my teaching pedagogy is mostly is social justice oriented, of course, but it also is more so along the lines of facilitator, demonstrator, coaching aspect. I bring in a lot of lived experience because of my experience in the profession. So mirroring that with the text and the information that's there and giving them real live experiences to put practice in motion. And then we do a lot of discussions. I try to bring in some guest speakers, but that's my approach, my teaching pedagogy in that space, and it's always going to be social justice oriented in some form or fashion, while demonstrating and teaching and coaching in that space.
Yeah. You have any you get the vibe or reflection from students that folks are feeling disconnected these days? Mine's a little different because most of my stuff is completely online. With the seniors I meet via Zoom, I hold optional talking circles. But what I've noticed over the last few years post pandemic is that folks often feel really disconnected to a lot of different things, but even specifically their educational program. They're going through it and they're going through the classes, but they don't feel connected. And I think even when I reflect on my own educational experience, some of the most meaningful moments are talking with the professor after class or going walking with the other students after class. And when you're doing an online program, you don't get any of that. And so you have to either create different, unique kind of opportunities, or you have to figure something else. Otherwise, people can go through a whole degree and feel
Mhm.
disconnected through social work, which is the exact opposite of what you're looking for in social work.
Right. Right. When we launched the online program, there was some I felt like there was some disconnect because ours is asynchronous, the online program. So
Mhm.
that's even more, critical in trying to engage with the client, the students. I said clients, but students. So we try to change some policies to kind of help with the engagement piece for professors and the students so they feel engaged. Obviously, our face-to-face students, they feel the support, the love, the community, what I'm saying, they create community within themselves. And sometimes the online program does too. But we had to be very strategic and intentional with creating that because it is easy to just get lost in it and just not create community and don't follow up. But and I try to also put myself in some of their shoes as well because I was there, and just make sure that they are seen and heard. Like I even get out the point of like, look, man, if you want to do office hours and you just want to talk about the profession of social work, just do that. We ain't got to talk about the assignments and academia all the time. It's just I want to build community and relationship so that you feel supported going into this profession. And that's during the program and post grad. You feel what I'm saying? Um, and that's something that was important to me because I feel like I had a lot of community as far as my cohort at George Mason University, and I have relationships with the professors as well. But in the realm of seeing what could be done in social work and then seeing folks who have done it and picking their brain or having conversations, I didn't have that. I didn't have none of that. So all of this stuff is kind of created on the fly, and just kind of pulling from other social workers and stuff like that. But I was like, all right, well, when I get in here, I'm gonna intentionally create that for my face-to-face students and my online students, so they know that they have a template to look at.
Yeah, yeah. What David asks in the chat, he asks, "What is something that you did to help get comfortable with public speaking?" That's something that he struggles with.
Oh, podcast, probably something like this. This is one thing that I definitely utilize to help myself in public speaking. Um, the other thing was, man, I was deaf, terrified of public speaking, bro. I hate public speaking. Everybody's like, "There's no way you hated public speaking or you were scared of public speaking." I was like, "Yes, that's not my first thing I wanted to do, but I pushed myself to. I ain't pushed myself. I really challenged myself to learn the art of public speaking." Um, So, and I used to get feedback from my professors, right? Just to make sure that I was on the right track with stuff. And I had one professor in my grad program who really was instrumental in kind of, you know, helped me find my voice, so that I could continue to utilize it, and be confident in it, right? And so I did that. It's a lot of repetition. Just find time to speak because the only way you can get better at it is you do public speaking. That's the only way you're gonna get better at it is you do public speaking. Doesn't have to be on very, very large scales. It's gonna be smaller scales, community scales. Just do the repetition of doing it so you can get comfortable with finding your voice. And then also I studied folks that I enjoyed who spoke. Like, as far as if there was other podcasters, they don't have to be in social work. Other podcasters, mass comm, analysts, things like that. If I enjoyed how they spoke and I like to listen to them, then I would study how the art of how they speak and infuse that into my space. Um, and even of my fellow podcasters too, like one of my guys, with Dr. James Bell, and my guy Chris Scott, they both podcasters. I've always enjoyed Chris's stuff because he's very like, we're just gonna put it out there. We're just gonna spit it out there. And so that helped me be more confident in not being such a perfectionist, right? Because sometimes we'll be too much of a perfectionist and don't put nothing out or just be too hard on ourselves. And then I took some stuff from my guy Dr. James Bell because I was like, he does a great job at driving home points, having a pause, and then elevating and driving home, specific points that he wants you to understand. And his podcast Equity Matters, I mean, that I learned a lot from him as well. So it's other folks out there too, but just studying. So you got to study the art of public speaking, and you also have to do the repetition to get better at it.
Yeah, that's great advice. I remember I had a failed go at college when I was like 19, 20 or something like that. And I remember I was in communications 101 and the final project was you had to public speak or speak in front of the class, do a presentation. I was so, afraid of that
Mhm.
moment, and if I look at myself today, I don't even consider it. It's actually
Mhm.
I'm actually more comfortable speaking in front of a group or speaking live on something like this than I am participating in small talk. I feel like I don't know what to
Yeah.
say. It makes
Yeah.
me, feel weird, but now, like, it's very easy for me, and all the pieces of advice you gave are great and things that I've done too, listen to people and emulate them, study the way that they go about it. Another thing that I've done is, I like to read to my children, and
Mhm.
so when I read the books, I try to sound like I wanna sound
Oh,
if I'm public speaking or on a podcast, and
yeah.
it's worked really well 'cause I hear
Nice.
myself and you know what I'm saying? I remember too when, I was at University of Hawaii and, a friend of mine was like, "Ace, you gotta come and get on the radio. You have the right voice for the radio. You got lots
Yeah.
of things to say. Come on the radio." And I was like, "I don't know what to say on the radio." I
Mhm.
remember he took me in the studio and he was training me and he's like, "All right, I'm gonna put you live. Just introduce yourself." And I was like, "I don't know how to talk into a microphone.
Yeah.
I don't even know what I would say about myself." And the best advice I think that you gave was you just got to do it.
Yep.
It's like, if you were trying to learn how to play basketball, if you'd never shot at a hoop before, you're gonna look funny and awkward.
Yep.
Your form's gonna be off. You gotta be willing to fail in order to, you gotta be okay with missing the shot to be
Yep.
able to make it someday, if you know what I mean.
Gotta practice. That's and it's gotta study it. You gotta study it and then you find your own voice, you know what I'm saying, and your own, own style and approach. I used to it was we do speaking engagements. So, some most speaking engagements, you got the PowerPoint slides behind you so you can talk off the screen, but you're not supposed to talk directly off the PowerPoint slides, right?
Mhm.
That's kind of rule of thumb. Um, and so then I, put your talking points on there and then you try to infuse stories and stuff like that. So one speaking engagement, I said, well, I'm gonna go off the cuff and I'm gonna see if I can do this without no slides, just talking points. And it went like it was one of my best, speaking engagements. And I was like, okay, all right, so we've reached another level now. You know what I'm saying? But trying that out in different environments to see, how well you do. And that's a big crowd of doing that without that. But that gives you also the confidence to public speak more. If you can speak on a topic without having any prompts or notes, then you are. And that's the other thing I forgot to mention too. Research your information. You should know what you're talking about. If you know what you're talking about, then you can, speak about it easier. But if you don't know what you're talking about, yeah, it's going to be a little bit harder and difficult. Um, so I know I can always talk about if you prompt me off the, with no nothing, I can always talk about black male mental health, black mental health. I can talk about social work. I can talk about sports. I can talk about cars, sneakers, unprompted, nothing in front of me. I can talk about these things. Um, so yeah, but you gotta know what you're talking about. You gotta do your research. And so at this point, like for black male mental health, somebody can ask me to just show up for a speaking engagement, say we need a filler, come in and do you got a topic? I can just pull it just like that at this point. Yeah. But that's been years though. We talking about it's 2025. I really started public speaking 2016, 2017. So it's been a journey. A lot of journey,
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah, and there's another great advice was saying to know what you're talking about, and also that to broaden that as well. That can help, and especially when when you're having a conversation in public or something like that, is to just read a lot and be interested in things. So that way, when topics come up, you know what I'm saying. You're well rounded, and the more that you know, the more likely you're going to be able to participate in those kind of things. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, gotta read. I tell students all the time, y'all want to write APA format, but y'all don't read journal articles. You're going to have to read the journal articles to get the language, to get the flow, and then you can put into your own words. So, yep.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, David got a question, and I'll read it in just a second, but it's interesting because that's where I was thinking of going next. I remember, well, I saw you at the NASW conference, but I was doing a podcast when you had your presentation, so I wasn't able to see it. But I saw some remnants of it afterwards, and I saw
Yeah.
some photos and things. And one of the things, I think it was at the NASW conference, but you all went in your Jordans. Is that the same?
Yes.
Is that
Yep.
the same one? Yeah. So you were wearing your Jordans, and I can't remember exactly what you said, but you said it was, kind of a monumental moment for you all to be able to go into what's, typically sometimes folks are in suit and ties and in professional atmosphere, and just to be yourself in that regard.
Yeah.
So I was hoping you could talk about that, but I'll ask David's question as well, and you can touch on all of it if you don't mind. He says, in the bio, Professor Ace posted it said that you are a sneakerhead. I was wondering what sneaker it was that made you become a sneakerhead, and what is the favorite pair that you have? I'm a sneakerhead too, so yeah, maybe touch on it as a whole, and then you know
Got you.
talk on the specifics.
Sneakerheads always find one another, boy. I tell you. um, man, what started sneakerhead? I'm trying to think. Man, it had to be fifth fifth grade. I want to say it was the Taxi 12s, and Flu Game 12s. I think that's my farthest memory. And I'm waiting diligently for my Taxi 12 to re-release this year, and I might retire for good, maybe. But no sneakerhead really retires. Um, and so you said my favorite pair that I have right now. Um, my favorite pair I have right now. It's so many in there right now because I've been really strategic on buying the ones that I want versus getting something just because I missed on something. It's like, nah, I'm gonna just wait and get what I really, really, really want because I end up selling them anyway. Um, uh, oh, I'm gonna be honest with you. I really like my New Balance, Joe Freshgoods collaboration, like the 992s, I believe. And I do like the Nigel Sylvester ones, the lows, the black ones. They are really comfortable. The quality is amazing. I would love that Jordan continues to Nike continues to use that quality on shoes. Um, and I like the opportunities to support black designers and black collaborators in these Nike and New Balance, whoever it is. I just enjoy trying to pick up. That's been one of my new passions. Is like, all right, I'm gonna try to get the sneakers from my favorite black designers and collaborators because they're doing dope stuff. So, that's the answer to that question. Yeah, man. Going back to the situation with NASW and just getting into the social work space, I told myself that I was always going to be the one to challenge the status quo. It's actually one of the questions that comes up in my discussion post with DSW here soon. Um, I was gonna show up myself, locks, glasses, sneakers, whatever, you name it. This is how I was going to show up. I don't like wearing a lot of suits unless I'm in church and got to do it for holidays. But that was just me. I found that I connected better with folks when I was just wearing and showing up as the community, right? Similar to my guy AI, like, you know what I'm saying? He dressed the way he's dressed because he was emulating the community that he saw, and that shifted the whole cultural dynamic of dress code in the NBA. But I was working on inpatient units when I first graduated my undergrad degree in psychology, and I had all my sneakers, and I would just wear them on the unit. I wear them on the unit, and they would be talking points for folks to have conversations about sneakers, fashion, basketball, sports. And there'll be opportunities for guys to, you know, uh, you know, they're already in psychiatric inpatients. And what else can we talk about that can kind of take your mind off everything? So I saw that connection, and I said, you know what? If I show up as myself, my authentic self, this is who I am. This is what I like. And it's no knock to anybody who dresses up, in those spaces, but I'm also meeting folks where they're at. And they feel more comfortable talking to a social worker that looks like this, right? That looks like them or looks like somebody that they, support or trust. This is how I'm gonna show up. And I've had, great success in doing that. And so when we decided, we kind of just bucked the whole system though. We decided that we all sneakerheads. We're going to wear our J's to this conference and show up. We also did not have any PowerPoint slides prepared. We just did it off the cuff. So we just kind of bucked the whole system to have that conversation, and it went amazing. Um, and it was a surreal, it was a good circle back moment because, you know, we believe in showing up as our authentic, and genuine selves in these spaces, especially in social work spaces, to motivate and to help inspire the next social worker to show that they can show up as the authentic selves and still do good work, right? And that, racial profiling or stigmatizing folks to look a certain way, because I get all the time, I've gotten all the stigmas, right? The weed man, basketball player, which I did play basketball. Um, Folks think I'm intimidating at times. I've gotten all the stereotypes and stigma, right? But to shift that and to create a different version of that for a helping professional, not even just social worker, going to just a helping professional, and do that and show up in these professional spaces as our authentic selves, meant so much more than just, whatever the content, well, not whatever content, but whatever that whole identity of what we should look like means. That mattered, and that was strategic and intentional. And so every time, and most of the times, if you see me at these conferences, I will have on sneakers. I will have on one of these. You'll never probably see me in a suit and tie at these conferences. So yeah.
Yeah, much respect to you for that too. There's a power in being able to show up as our authentic selves. And I think also you showing up that way, you mentioned like the stigmas or the stereotypes people can have towards you, or the assumptions they make about you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that can derail them sometimes or redirect what somebody's thinking about it, because now they have a personal life experience where they experience something different,
Yep.
if you know what I'm saying. And so
Yep.
much respect to you for, one, just being your authentic self. And I think you're giving power to other people. And I'll just say that when I ran into you all at the NASW conference, I'd seen you guys a few times and seen you online, but you all had a very powerful spirit about you. And so I just wanted to say that I recognized that at the conference, and just
Appreciate
much
it.
respect to all of you for what you're doing. And, I hope that I can continue to, run into you in other spaces and connect with you, because
Yeah.
like I said, you all have a powerful spirit about you, about what you got going on, for
Thank
sure.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We try to show up and be ourselves, man, and just help motivate and change folks and influence change, man. That's what we wanted to do, man. So I really appreciate those words, those for sure.
Yeah, well, there's a few more comments. Let's get here. David added that his favorite pair I have are the Chunky Dunky. And, I used to be into shoes, but you all are talking over my head. I don't understand what you're talking
You got the chunky
about.
dunks, yo. He got some heat. That's the them joints was hard to find and hard to get, bro. I couldn't get my hands on them. I wouldn't mind having a pair of them, but I can't pay the resale. I'm a anti-resale payer. Like I'll wait until they re-release or somebody, say, oh, because it also got to the point we created community, right? And so folks might say, well, I'm selling some shoes. Trey, you want these? I know they're going to a good home. Yeah, send them over here. You know what I'm saying? So it's good stuff.
Yeah. David added that his wife got him for Christmas for a few years ago on resale. And
Oh,
he
see,
also said, oh,
they
go
don't count. They don't count for him. Then they don't count. He ain't paid for 'em.
ahead.
They his, but he had to pay for 'em.
Yeah. And he also added that I think by showing up as your authentic self, it helps you relate to the ones that you're helping,
Yeah,
making them more comfortable. And I would agree with that 100%. Um,
absolutely. That's my
I used to
goal.
be a little timid about self-disclosure and things like that. And once I became comfortable with it, it's made me, even with David that's talking here, um, it just made me be able to connect, because people hear me talking, they see themselves in me,
Hmm.
and I can see myself in them, and so on. And you're really able to build connections with students in that way. And um,
Yeah.
it's a female dominated profession, in which it can be positive in some ways. Um, but oftentimes I found that the male students that come in are just dying for a male,
Hmm.
not even say a male figure, but a male, somebody that they can see themselves in, to help them see their own path forward and see that it can be done, if you know what I mean, and even experience wise as well.
Hmm. Yeah, it doesn't have to look a certain way and doesn't have to be super intense and bravado around that. Like you can be empathetic and show compassion as a man to others. You know what I'm saying? So I take that into consideration too. Showing up as my authentic self, showing up with my locks is one of the reasons why I won't cut my locks. I might cut my locks after I grab my doctoral degree, but I'm walking across the stage with these locks. It's been 20, almost 20 years, close to it. No, 17, 18, something like that. Um, and then just to show like this is I can have be successful because I was told at one point I couldn't be successful with long hair. So all these different things around toxic masculinity, expectations, and machismo and roles. It's like I want to break all of that, show and prove that it can be done, provide the foundation, provide the template, and hopefully inspire folks to do what they need to do. And I'll move off into retirement or stay in, move off into the, the back roads and backwoods that I'm at. So
Yeah. From my personal experience, there's a racial element to all of it too, because
Mhm.
I've had several different experiences. But I got long hair. You can't see it right now, but I got long hair too. And I went and met with this guy. Was trying to talk to me a while back when I was going for my MSW. He was trying to get me to host some substance abuse thing, as I had a background in it. And anyway, so we go. He takes me to lunch, and we're having lunch. It's a white guy, and we're talking. Do you know who you know who Dr. Carl Hart is at University of Columbia? He's
Mm-mm.
in psychology or psych. I can't remember. But anyways, he's got a couple books about substance abuse and drug use and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
And he's black guy with dreads, got a goat tooth and things like that. And so I'm at lunch with this guy, and we're talking about Dr. Carl Hart. And I got long, my hair's down, it's long, and he starts criticizing Dr. Carl Hart, saying, "Oh, he's got really great ideas, man. But if he would just present himself better and
Right.
cut his hair and things like that." And I'm like, do you realize who you're talking I'm talking to? And the only thing that it could be at that point is he's saying, like, because it's dreads and it's
Yep.
the racial tinge. And then my wife has dreads, and so she
Hmm.
gets too many things to name. But there's just little comments that
Yeah.
folks make sometime, which
Yeah. Yeah.
the imagination runs wild. Let's put it that
Right.
way.
Yeah. And I think that's the piece of it, right? Like when young boys or even adults, I think I get more conversations from you know adults, grown adults around my authentic self and showing up this way, and even not code switching sometimes, and how that empowers them, right? Even in class, I'm gonna still talk. I got a little country twang, a little, and I slur my words a little bit sometimes. Talk a little bit too fast, but I can still talk the clinical jargon. But that has nothing to do with who I am as a person, right? And why do you feel threatened or feel like I should clean up because I have long hair and I speak a certain way? That's just me. Doesn't make me more different than you as far as these things. I got the same credentials. You know what I'm saying? Um, so when I show up into those conferences and stuff like that, and my authentic self, that also empowers other social workers and professionals to just be themselves, right? In this space. You know what I'm saying? So they can stop wearing the facade. And I know why they wear the facade, right? Save face and then make sure that they, protected and safe. But at this point, Christian, like I got all the credentials at this point. It ain't too much you can fire me from at this point. You know what I'm saying? I can find another hustle to do. And I know that's a privilege,
Mm.
as well, but I've done everything. And so I think that, I'm not gonna create a shell of myself just to be, you know, touted as this certain type of clinician or professor. If I can't be my authentic self or genuine self in those spaces, then I don't belong there.
Yeah, and I feel like you earned that power.
Hmm.
So, you know,
Yeah, I've done the work.
I
I've
would
done it.
mm,
And you get into those, you have those conversations sometimes with professionals, and it's like, well, you know, tell me your background and experience, and you know, so who are you to say that I couldn't do this and that when I've got my social work stripes?
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, you earned it. There's more I could say on that, but I'm gonna let it go.
Same, same.
Mm.
We could
All right,
definitely take it there with that one for sure.
we got another good question from Charlie, leading us in the direction I wanted to go anyways. And he says, in the realm of reading and knowing what you're talking about, what advice would you give to students about healthy ways of staying informed without overwhelming themselves? Taking in coursework and the news cycle and additional reading is something I struggled with in my undergraduate program. And I would say that this is very relevant right now and where we're at in time, because there's a million podcasts as well as there's a million media sources that you can be oversaturated with all the time. And so
Hmm.
it's cool that so many people are producing content and putting news and their ideas out there. But it can be overwhelming to
Yeah.
where do you go at these days? You know what I mean?
Mm. Man, it's hard, man. Because it's, this phone, man, these phones and this media. Think about, like, prior to that, man, we didn't have so much access. Like, it was something that happened across the country. You wouldn't probably hear about it for months or till the next year. Um, and so as a result of that, we've obtained immediate access to things that, can create vicarious trauma, stress us out, increase anxiety, things of that nature. If you do enough reading and research, you'll also get a little sad and anxious about that stuff too, because if you're looking for something that's going to pretty much prop itself up. And so I tell folks, man, like, you gotta step away at some point, whether that's taking a break off social media, um, because social media is gonna be the rampant one. I
Mhm.
can stop doing social media for, like, a few days or whatever, and I can feel my brain and my body shift. And when I get back on, I can feel it tense up a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And then I have to figure out, do I want to stay on? Do I want to take this app off? Do I want to do whatever? So you just got to find the balance, man. You got to set the boundary for yourself. If you know you got work to do as far as social work and reading and stuff like that, it's probably best to stay within that realm, and then just small bits and pieces of the news cycle that's pertinent, to you and your family, your loved ones, and your community. Um, and then put it away. So I don't watch a lot of news. I get my stuff from, whether it's social media or the group chats. Folks keep me up to date on stuff, but I can't intake that because I do that work, all the time. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I'm
Mhm.
teaching about these things all of the time. So I have to remove myself and just, give my brain some time to downtime to do something that's more intentional. So we talk about your hobbies, right? My hobbies is sneakers and cars and, playing a video game, watching sports. That takes me away from, the everyday 24/7 social work, the readings. um, I get really immersed into my readings and my research, and it consumes me. So I have to shift it away. I have to. If not, it's going to consume me. And so you just got to set that boundary with yourself. Take time to uh, set that boundary with social media, with the news cycle, and then just give yourself some grace with the work that you're doing, and make sure that you're indulging in things that interest you as well.
Yeah, great advice. And I would add that, when you get thrown a lot of academic material and things like that, I used to have this, it's like a principle of mine or something that was, I got to read everything from cover to cover, every word of it. And then I
Yeah.
found a lot of times it was wasting my time when I thought I was just showing integrity or something. And so be strategic about it and learn how to skim and follow what you need to follow, if that makes sense, because there's a lot of filler in oftentimes in academic material or stuff that you've already covered or stuff that's going to be irrelevant to you. And so that's what I would
Yeah.
say is.
Yeah. Outlines, scanning, know what you're looking for. If you not know what you're looking for, yeah, it's gonna be a lot.
Mhm. Yeah, we got a question from Instagram. MD Shaj, I think he said Sajib says, "This sounds like a powerful conversation. I'm curious to hear how storytelling shapes social work practice, especially around mental health and racial equity."
Yeah, I mean, the lived experiences, right? Like, folks are being able to share, you know, what they're actually experiencing. One of the things I've come across with the Afrocentric perspective from that framework is centering that, like, lived experience of Black folks and what they experience on a daily basis, whether that's racism, discrimination, or the environment that they're living in. And so that's powerful, and that helps because a lot of times our voices aren't centered in that manner. And so folks will come in and use an intervention, or talk about an intervention, and it will just be about the intervention, but not be culturally specific. So a lot of times these things don't help those individuals, and it's very tough to matter. Hold on one second, y'all, real quick. Oh, did they go? They might have went to upside. I'm sorry. My family was coming in the door. Yeah. So that's pretty much how it would helpful. And if we move from this place of, oh, I'm gonna just go by the symptom, or I'm just go by the diagnosis as a way to address the issue, but not the system and how the system has impacted or oppressed and marginalized this community, then yeah, that's where storytelling can come into space. Yeah. Sorry, got thrown off.
Yeah, no worries. I'm dealing with the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got family walking around and a puppy walking around. Um, Matter of fact, I did a podcast a couple weeks ago, and we got a kitten and a puppy. So our hands are full, but we had the kitten. It was playing around, and it ripped the roadcaster out of the wall. So all the power went out on the my mics and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
that's going back to podcasting and stuff like that. That's another thing. Is one thing I've learned is that if there can be technical problems, they will happen at some point, and so you have to not take it personal and just roll with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you're just gonna be frustrated.
Roll with the punches for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Um, yeah, not bad.
One of the first podcasts I did on Riverside, I was all happy to have this new platform and things like that. And I accidentally gave all of my students the link to the guest link, and I hadn't turned on where you had to let them in yet. And so I was doing this interview, and I had like 20 people populating in the thing, and I kept trying to kick them out and then come back in.
Hey, technology going technology, man. You know, when it don't work. I mean, I as much as I, use Zoom and all these different things, I still have some troubleshooting sometimes with certain things, man. So technology on technology every time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we get into the end. There was a few other things that we kind of had on the agenda. But is there anything that you would want to talk about? Anything that we haven't discussed that's important to you?
Um, I don't know. I think we hit on everything. I did write a book. I had a book written about stuff that pertaining to my own mental health, my own journey, and had an opportunity to publish that with my co-writer, my co-author, Saint Yvonne. And I think that's important because again, kind of storytelling, right? Sharing stories, making sure that people know, making sure that people, 'cause a lot of times I think folks, we give a false facade on what we present, right? You see what we present in the front, and then folks want to know what's the background. I mean, we remove ourselves from the background because we don't want to tell the full story of how we got there. And it's like, well, this is what it looks like. This is what happened. So, um, that has also shaped my professional journey, my work, and the stuff that I do. I think just being more open with my own mental health journey and dealing with grief and loss, how that had impacted me and my family, and then also how that impacts men. And so even the concept of the barbershop talk, where I created this barbershop talk to have conversations with Black men about their own mental health, stress, well-being, things of that nature, using my Goodfellas project, my template. It was helpful in establishing, like, hey, we can come together, have conversations, we can share our stories, we're not alone, because a lot of brothers feel like they're alone, and we can move forward with stuff. And even in that, when I did the Goodfellas project and went to the barbershop talk, it still was sneakerheads coming up, and sneakerheads talking about the life journey, and older adults, younger guys, just sharing the different lived experiences, and then also looking fly and streetwear, sneakers, stuff like that. And I was like, all right, so this is a tool, right? We can use this for good in a way to help brothers. But and this is one way you can do it. So I'm thankful for that. I'm glad I became vulnerable to be able to, share that. I've got a feedback from one guy, man, who was just said he treated it like, not to compare it to the Bible, but just, treat it like the Bible in a sense, because it was helping them overcome some stuff, some dark stuff that he was dealing with. And I was like, and they got a spiritual component to it. So, you know, part of my journey, I think, of social work journey is to be creative, to be innovative, and try out non-traditional things to help folks, especially Black men in the Black community. And definitely appreciative of, those things that I've done and being vulnerable to get to that space. So
Yeah, is the book that you're talking about is like the Mental Health Keys book?
No, that's the second one. That was a workbook. The last book I just published out 2022, I believe, was Refresh the Journey to Find Peace.
Okay, I see.
Mhm.
I'll include those in the description. I'll get them in there for you all.
Yep.
Well, Trey, as we're wrapping up, a question I like to ask, being that we're the Critical Social Worker podcast, when you think about social work, kind of two sides of the question. When you look at social work as it is in its present day in your experience, what's missing from social work that you think would improve it, make it better? And then if you were to envision social work, if we were looking 5 years down the road, let's say, a couple years down the road, how would you imagine social work if it had grown into the way that you envision it, to whether it's to better help Black men or, as a whole, what would you envision that would make it, you, um, the social work that you see?
What's missing? I think what's missing from social work is more attention to self care as practitioners, because we do amazing work and heavy work, but we focus more so on the helping and not so much the helper. So, I think that that's missing. It's there, but it's not being pushed as hard as just providing the services. Um, and so I envision, in hopefully in 5 years that we will have shifted into, we'll continue to push, the support of, you know, supporting, marginalized and oppressed communities. And we'll be doing this in a manner that is more healthy, right? Hopefully, I would like to see us as social workers practice in a more healthy manner to help others, because we can't help anybody else if we don't help ourselves. And a lot of folks are burning out from the profession. I've seen a lot of burnout. I experienced burnout. It affects you mentally and physically. So we can't help others and do the work that we can do on a broader scale if we're not taking care of ourselves. And it's tough to do, right? I understand. I get it. But it shouldn't be a reward because of the work you do. It should be a constant and a fixated piece of your life to be able to practice social work, and also practice sound self care. So that's what I was at.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the profession and the organizations that kind of govern and facilitate social work, they need to step up as well because, going through some of the degree programs and stuff, I think sometimes they're a bit oversaturated. Whereas
Hmm.
what folks really need is opportunity to take care of themselves and to connect and things like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you're talking about an MSW where you go to advanced standing and if you do the math, it doesn't really work out if you're taking 5 graduate classes and what you're supposed to spend in there. You're going to do an internship. You got a family. You might have another job. All that stuff. The math really doesn't work out, and so that's why
Hmm.
you see social workers in debt with student loans and things like that.
Right.
So we need to take care of our own. You know what I mean? So, and I think
Yeah.
that you just providing the space for folks to take care of themselves.
Right. 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 Exactly. I agree. I agree.
Mhm. Well, Trey, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I knew it would be.
Mhm.
I was surprised at how many commonalities we had and where we're at in life and all of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, thank you and much respect to you. Um, you're exactly what we need out there in the world, especially in social work. So I just want to say thank you for being authentically you. And it's
Hmm.
been all my pleasure to have you. And thank you for generously giving us your time and your wisdom and your experience today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Christian, for having me, man. Thank you for everything that you are doing in the social work space, man. Appreciate it. Keep doing your thing. If you need anything from my side, let me know. We're glad to help. So,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm sure we'll connect again. All right, Trey, have a good day.
You too, man. Thank you.